For more now, we turn to Jeff Pegues and Major Garrett. So, Jeff, let's start with you. The House Oversight Committee is demanding to see Comey's memos. Explain for our viewers the credibility of an FBI agent's notes and how they can be used in an investigation.
Well, they take detailed notes, and that's what the FBI teaches its agents to do. Whenever they have a meeting that could later be called into question, they take notes, and that's why you had Director Comey taking these very detailed notes of these meetings. And I've seen it happen in talking to FBI agents. I've seen them, even sometimes when they address the media, you see them taking these very detailed notes and asking over and over again, okay, you said this and you said this, why? And so I've seen it happen. In one instance, there was an FBI agent who had a little notebook. It looked like a diary, but he was just kind of taking notes, very detailed notes, and going back and asking questions. So it is something that the FBI trains its agents to do. And so if members of Congress want to see those notes and subpoena those notes, they will get a very detailed account of what may have happened in that meeting.
Oh, that's very interesting, because you wondered if it was just sort of a diaries or something that he just sort of sketched out
I think
casually,
there's even a word
but clearly
for it.
not.
Memcon.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Major, the White House has obviously denied that the president asked Comey to shut down the Flynn investigation. You've reported that White House allies describe a sort of lack of internal structure within the administration. That being the case, is there a game plan here, or are they just sort of putting out fires and just trying to cover their bases as things unfold?
Well, they're trying to put out fires, and right now there is a general structure, and this is something that has been said about this White House almost since Inauguration Day, but it has definitely picked up speed and intensity in the last week or so. The sense that there really is not an organized way for decisions to be brought to the president and then be decided by the president. That there are, and there really always have been, 4 or 5 fiefdoms within the West Wing of the White House, 4 or 5 different centers of power. And they are rivals to each other. They sometimes work around each other, sometimes compete openly against each other. And that creates a difficult process for decisions to rise to the level of the president and then be carried out once they are decided. But those are structural issues. Even people who wish this White House well and would like to see President Trump succeed are, they tell me, increasingly concerned about the president's own actions and his decision-making process. Because at the center of every one of these controversies is what the president says or what the president does. And his intentions may be benign, but the interpretation of those intentions or the president's own words have created dramatic political backlash in the case of the firing of FBI Director James Comey and what the president said during this meeting with the Russian diplomats discussing classified intelligence. Those are just 2 recent examples, but there have been ones before it. But these ones have created such a moment here in Washington that Republicans are beginning to pull back from this White House on Capitol Hill. They are much less willing to run to the microphones and defend the White House or push the Republican agenda forward on behalf of the president. So I don't think the word paralysis yet applies, but there is definitely a sense that this White House can barely find any inertia to move anything forward and is sort of stuck trying to deal with these controversies and adapt to the firestorm around it, much of it set in motion by the president's own actions or words, and in some cases, intentions.
Yeah, it was surprising to see that late yesterday evening, the cable networks could not book any Republican lawmaker to come on the record and talk to them about this. They were all sort of running and hiding. Jeff, you spoke to a source, though, who told you that more leaks are coming. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there are current and former intelligence / law enforcement officials who feel that there was wrongdoing. Whether it was in connection with the Russian meddling in the election or in connection with this FBI counterintelligence investigation into whether Trump campaign associates were coordinating with the Russians. There are officials who have seen what they believe is evidence of wrongdoing and what they are trying to do, and they say that it is their patriotic duty to get the information out there in the public domain. And that's what you are seeing with some of these leaks. The White House says that this is orchestrated. Well, if you look at the timing of some of the leaks, well, I can understand why the White House would feel that way. But there are people who want to counter the narrative that is coming from the White House, dismissing the Russia investigation, dismissing the threat that they felt Michael Flynn in the White House as National Security Advisor posed to national security. And so there is an effort to get the information out there. Some people connected to the White House, certainly, and the White House defenders, they call them leaks. But the people on the other side say that it is their patriotic duty to do this, to get that information out there. And some, according to my sources, are saying that they consider this, in a way, taking a whistleblower status type of stance. They think this is that serious that they feel they have to get the truth, as they see it, out there in the public domain.
So the onslaught of bombshells will not be slowing down. I know for us, every day there seems to be something new to discuss. Major, I want to get back to this sharing of classified information with the Russians. We've now learned that that information came from Israel. Is there any more to that? Any fallout? What's the latest?
Well, no direct fallout, but we are told the president called the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday to discuss, we are told, the upcoming trip to Israel and some of the other controversies that have largely been overshadowed by all this other news that have been generated by the president's decision to go to the Western Wall and not allow any Israeli officials to accompany him, and for some U.S. officials, not authorized, the White House says, to tell the Israelis the Western Wall isn't even part of Israel, which created its own controversy there. But as far as intelligence sharing, look, this relationship between the United States and Israel on that score is as strong as any in the world. And it was tested even more during the Obama administration, when the Israelis learned after the fact that the Obama administration had been carrying out secret negotiations that proved to be a prelude to the Iran nuclear deal. If anything tested Israel's commitment to the United States on behalf of intelligence sharing and overall security questions, that tested it. And it was able to withstand that insult, that lack of transparency. So Margaret Brennan, my colleague, and my reporting suggests that the Israeli-U.S. intelligence sharing relationship will still withstand this particular moment. But what it does do is it does raise questions about whether U.S. allies not named Israel will be comfortable or as comfortable in the future sharing intelligence. And it may raise questions about how trustworthy President Trump is himself in handling information that is of a highly classified nature. If it is within his personality to share it just because he thinks it's so interesting and fascinating, even though that's outside of the bounds of what a president ought to do, maybe it may not be shared with him as in the ways that it was leading up to this meeting with the Russians. All of this is under reconsideration. And if I could, ever so briefly, let me touch on what Jeff was just talking about. This idea, and the White House really began to push it yesterday, that there's this concerted effort to have timed leaks that knock this administration off its agenda, that keep it flailing. There is that sense. The White House does say that there's something going on, and even put out a campaign email yesterday to that effect. But people who wish this White House well, who are advisors in good stead with this White House, in my extensive conversations with them yesterday, never brought that up. They said the central issue is the West Wing, the sense of dysfunction, the rivalries, and the president's own behavior. That's the central issue. And you can try to create a narrative about people undermining or trying to hurt the administration through selective leaks. Guess what? That happens in Washington a lot. You have got to be preemptively prepared for that. And one last note. This White House, for whatever reasons, believed that firing the FBI director would not create a political backlash. If there is a greater miscalculation on the politics of a big presidential decision since Inauguration Day, I don't know of a bigger one. And they are reeling and have been reeling ever since.
Major Garrett and Jeff Pegues, thank you so much, gentlemen.